Welcome in to another special edition of Pressbox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of Pressbox at PressBoxOnline.com. With me, I'm happy to have Heather Eshleman, who's Director of Operations, the Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling. How are you, Heather?
I'm doing great, Stan. Thanks for having me on the show today. Appreciate
All,
it.
Always a pleasure to try and help some people understand what's out there with problem gambling and how they can reach you. So let's take care of that to begin with. How can people reach you if they think they have a problem gambling or somebody they know and love thinks they have a problem with gambling? Start with that.
Yeah, so the single most important thing can take from this interview is that if you or someone you know has a gambling disorder, call, text, chat 24 hours, 7 days a week, 1-800-GAMBLER, and you'll get a live person, no
Okay.
matter what time you call or
And
text or chat.
is the person that calls, is that one of the trained support people that most likely has gone through what the person who calls in is experiencing?
Yes, so we do have the call center, so you don't have to talk to someone with lived experience.
Okay.
Say you just want to be, um, you want to go to a Gamblers Anonymous meeting, or say you just want to know what the resources are. But peer support, talking to someone with lived experience of problem gambling is an option that's offered, and they can do a warm transfer directly to someone here that's local in Maryland, that has lived experience. So they're very familiar with the local resources in different Maryland areas.
And that phone number, once again, 1
It's
800
1-800-GAMBLER.
Gambler. That's what I thought.
Yes.
Okay. We had a little bit of an agenda today to really talk rather than just spin and give stories and all that. We wanted to talk a little bit today about a federal law it hasn't passed yet. It's called the Points Act, and that stands for providing opportunities for individuals in need of treatment and support. And it's fascinating reading about this. I did not know that the federal government, which spends billions of dollars supporting tobacco, alcohol, and drug problems, people with those problems, they don't contribute a nickel right now to gambling problems.
That's correct, Stan. So, unfortunately,
Is that
with
because you haven't done a good job, Heather?
no, 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 we're doing a good job. It's just it really problem
How's
gambling.
that possible? That is it because the gambling issue is just really coming to the forefront with how big a problem it's becoming?
Yes, I think it wasn't recognized as an addiction as early on as alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. So basically, problem gambling in the public health area is behind when it comes to funding and recognition and awareness. So currently, like you said, the federal government does not provide any funding for problem gambling services. So whether that be prevention, treatment, or recovery, not a single dime. So right now, I just finished Advocacy Day, and we met with legislative liaisons for some of our federal delegates and representatives. And so we're trying to advocate that there be some funding now for problem gambling that comes down from the federal level to the states so that there are services for those that are negatively impacted by gambling.
So right now, the people in the state of Maryland, all the money that goes toward this treatment and your organization, it's all funded by state money right
Correct.
now.
So
Okay.
currently, when the casinos were established around 2010,
Yep.
they established this problem gambling fund that is a percentage of the licensing fees from the casinos. So that is the problem gambling fund. It goes to the Maryland Department of Health, and then the Maryland Department of Health, the Behavioral Health Administration, divvies out the money. And so we get a portion of that money for the Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling.
But not all the money that you need comes from that. Is that correct? In
Well,
other words, the casinos don't fund every cent that you spend.
I mean, indirectly they do because
Okay.
currently we're not fundraising. We'd like to do more fundraising and direct, trying to get more funding for our operations and our services. But currently are 100% funded under the Problem Gambling Fund through the Department of Health.
All right. So tell me what's going on currently with this lead piece of legislation, the Points Act. Is it something that will be voted upon in the House and the Senate this summer, or is it now, or we don't know?
So basically, all different people like myself from across the country did Problem Gambling Advocacy Day at the federal level. It was virtual last week through the National Council on Problem Gambling. So we all were advocating with our local state representatives. And so it has been introduced. The bill language has been drafted, but we don't have enough sponsors yet. So our whole ask was to try to get some of our delegates and representatives to help co-sponsor the bill. So it hasn't officially been introduced, but it's a hope that within the next month or two it will be.
Let me ask you a question, and I don't want to get into politics, whether you're Democrat or Republican, but supposedly there's a strong chance that the House will turn Democrat in November. Do you think that would be a positive for this initiative?
So in problem gambling, we're fortunate. Generally, we're seen as bipartisan. So
Bipartisan. Okay.
we do have already a couple of Democrat sponsors and also Republicans. So we were
Okay.
actually meeting with both
Okay. That's great.
because this issue impacts everyone, whether, your constituents are of various parties. So
T-
I think that it can be something that everyone sees as a need.
tell me about one thing. When I was reading up on this, knowing we were talking about this today, it says the social cost of this is as much as $14 billion. Can you explain to me where that money is costing everybody? Is that because it's money that could be spent elsewhere on education or healthcare? It's something that has to go toward this.
So basically, when they're talking about the 14 billion annually, they're really looking at those with gambling disorders and the strain that they cause in our communities, like on the public health realm. So when you're looking at the number of bankruptcies claimed due to a gambling disorder, so that costs us tax dollars money. And then you look at divorces and foreclosures. So all of these things cost money to our, and also mental health
Yeah,
issues.
sure.
So, and then that puts a strain on our mental health providers. So, if you kind of look at the bigger picture at the end of the day, it leads to poverty also, as people are losing money, and they're losing houses, it can lead to homelessness. So, like, if you think of all the social concerns that problem gambling touches, that's where all that money adds up. So, it has a cost to our society.
Reading up on this, it's fascinating. It says that currently there are 9 million people that are addicted to gambling. But this is a staggering number that I'm going to read you now, and I'm sure you're aware of it. It says that 8% of American adults, almost 20% of our population, have reported at least experiencing one indication of problematic gambling uh, in the past year. And that problematic gambling is many times. That means 5 6 times a year. Is that the balloon that we're seeing being built up by the legalized gambling?
Yeah, I would say so. So basically, when we're looking at the people impacted, you might have about 5% of people that really have a disorder that can't
Yeah.
control it. But then, like you said, you have those other 5% or so that are just negatively impacted. So they can still kind of continue on with their life, but they're,
They put it on
losing.
hold for a little while, and then they inevitably the fly the moth goes back to the flame.
Right, but they're losing money they don't plan to lose. So
Yeah.
that has an impact on their time with their family or whatever, their job. And then it also has a strain on their finances. So they may not have an active addiction, but they are getting some negative impacts due to their gambling.
So if we're talking today and people are listening to us or watching us and they know that they have a problem or they've overcome a problem, is there something they can do to help get this Points Act passed? Can they call their congressman
Of
or
course.
congresswoman? Yeah,
Yes, yes. So like I said, we just met um with Senator Van Hollen's office. We met with Angela Alsabrook's office. We met with Andy Harris's office,
right.
and we met with Kwesi and Fume. So
Okay.
especially if they're your delegates or representatives, they're
Let them
they're
know.
already aware of this. So like
Okay.
if you want to advocate, we encourage you to reach out to them and say, hey, we would love to see some funding for problem gambling at the federal level come down to our state here in Maryland because it's
Okay.
needed.
Okay. And the amount of money that is proposed in the Points Act would be 0.25% of every dollar wager across the country.
Yeah, so it would already it's not taxpayers' dollars. It's more those that are spending on gambling activities. They're already
It's an
collecting.
excise tax
Mhm.
on gamblers.
Right. So
Okay.
it's they're collecting that already. So a portion of that would go back to this fund that would go down to the states.
It's no different than if a state is building a new stadium for a baseball team and they put a hotel tax, like where a nickel of every dollar that comes is going toward this tax to build a stadium. It's just like that, right?
I would say similar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Um, that's the Points Act. The other thing we wanted to talk to today, which is sort of a new booming part of the gambling market and the gambling problem market, is the predictive markets. Um, and maybe you can explain it a little bit for our viewers because I'm not that well versed in this. Tell us a little bit about the predictive markets in gambling right now.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the biggest trend in gambling, the gambling world. Basically there are sites like
Poly
Kalshi and
Market and Kalshi,
Polymarket. Yes. And those are the two most popular. And now, of course, some of the other sports betting industry leaders are also getting involved, like your DraftKings and FanDuel. But basically, you're buying shares. So they don't define it as gambling. You are, on these financial platforms, they're called, and you can open up a trade contract. So you buy a share. So there would be like, you're going to predict who's going to win a game or
okay,
who's going to win an election or anything that somebody wants to bet on. What's the weather going to be like today? Sunny or rainy? And then you pick yes or no. And then you
okay.
have a pool of people buying these uh, trade contracts.
And they're buying both sides of it. I mean,
Right,
different people are buying the it's going to rain, different people are buying it's not going to rain.
exactly.
Okay. And you
So
have
then,
to have both sides to complete a deal, correct?
correct,
Or a prediction.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and you can pull your shares at any time, but basically, when you have the final answer of whatever was purchased,
Right.
then that person, if they had the right answer, they can get a cash out on that.
Okay.
So the concern in the gambling world is it really does meet the definition of gambling because you're putting in a stake or something of value in an uncertain outcome, and then you could win or lose. So we want people to be aware that prediction markets do meet the definition of gambling, so that if someone is starting to participate and they don't think it's risky, it is could
It's
be just
very
as
risky.
risky as any other forms of gambling.
Yeah. It's essentially like betting on the flip of a coin. It's going to
Right.
come up one or the other. But let me ask you a question about the prediction markets. Is you say it's the hottest thing now in gambling, right? Is
Yeah.
it taking away? It's not regulated the way the casinos are within the state. So if it's taking people away from betting with FanDuel or DraftKings or going to live casino or the horseshoe, it's taking money that would be taxed out of the market, right?
That's correct. So basically, I mean, I just went on one of the sites today and you barely need to provide any information. There could even be an underage person on there. There's
Really?
not really any safety controls. It's almost like the illegal markets that you're seeing, like these sites that come in illegally that aren't regulated. So yeah, I mean, they are taken away from the business of the legitimate industry here in Maryland. So that is
Is,
of concern.
is it so new that they don't have data yet that shows, is this a whole new subset of gamblers? Or is it the people that would be gambling on games are just moving over and say, hey, this is kind of neat. And maybe I'm not paying as the VIG or something like that.
I mean, I think they're going to hook whoever they can. But basically, it appeals to people that I would think are buying and trading stocks
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
because they see it as a business transaction. So when they're using the terms like the financial platforms and
It
trade
feels it
contracts,
feels cleaner. It feels like
exactly.
it's cleaner than betting on sports or something.
Some of it's terminology.
Yes.
So,
Okay. Hey, I got one last thing to talk to you about today, Heather, and that is the World Cup. We a lot of times we peg our conversations around the Triple Crown or the beginning of the NFL betting season. Um, is the World Cup is that a big deal in the gambling world?
oh, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I even went on the prediction market site today and like all the teams that are playing like today, this week, you can already um, pick the team that's going to win on the prediction markets, but then also sports betting. Yeah, if you go on the sports betting apps, it's also prominent there. And then, of course, you can do like who's going to score the goal. Who's going to get a penalty. There's all kinds of those microtransactions within the game that you can bet on through the sports betting apps.
is
So,
is is the soccer better? Is that a younger better? Because people my age in the United States, at least, I don't meet many people that follow soccer very closely, but you get into talking to the 20-year-olds, the 25, 30-year-olds, they know all the leagues in soccer, they know all the players. Is that an area that young bettors are really into?
it definitely is because if you think about it, like even my kids are in high school and my son just graduated, but like
Congratulations.
thanks. They were on soccer teams. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what you do when, this generation, most kids have played soccer when they were young. I didn't when I was young, but nowadays that's what you do. You put your kids in soccer,
Yeah.
and that's what they grow up with. Not that the adults are or when they grow up, maybe they're not watching so much soccer, but I do think if you look at the diversity in our country now, you've got all these people coming and immigrating from other countries where soccer was super popular.
Well,
And I'm talking about the rest of the world except us, really.
yeah, it dwarfs the popularity of NFL football, actually, which is
Right,
hard for us to believe, you know.
right. So where we're so into the NFL, every other country seems to be really into soccer. So
Right.
it's their football of
All right.
of the world. So we're a little bit outnumbered there when it comes to the fans.
All right. Well, thanks for updating us on the Points Act. And again, I'd urge anyone who's in favor of federal funding for problem gambling around the country, not just the state of Maryland, that amount of money raised by every person that gambles would be divided equally amongst the 50 states. I
Yeah.
urge them to call their Congress people and
Yes.
their
Thank you for
senators.
that.
All right. We thank you again for doing this. Can we reconnect right around the beginning of the football season to talk about some issues?
Of course, be happy to.
All right. Heather Eshleman, Director of Operations for the Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling. We thank you for your time as always.
All right. Thank you, Stan. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Bye for now.
Okay. Bye. Take care.